So I have Susan Postle here from Occupy Corporatism. I know everybody listening is familiar with her work. I read her articles. She does a show over at now. Is it you or is it your husband? You both do it because I hear you both, but mostly I hear your husband on on the Region 10 report. Now,
No, it is my show, the Region 10 Report on American Freedom Radio, 4 to 5 Central Time, and it's on Thursdays once a week. I'm expanding it to 2 hours, but it's not 2 hours yet.
okay, all right. Also soundcast on some other networks.
Yeah, Prepper
UCY's.
Podcast, UCY, Spreaker. We've got iTunes Podcast. Just put in the Region 10 Report. You can also listen to the archives on radio.occupycorporatism.com, and you can download the MP3 or you can listen to it live on the website. And basically, you can go to the American Freedom Radio archives and listen to my other shows there as well.
Okay, now we could probably we could do a week of shows, but we'll just stick to the theme that we have that we've decided on, which will be we'll start out talking about. Well, actually, we'll just cover some articles that you wrote, but the subjects are very important, and they're the ones that I wanted to talk about. This first one, where you discussed the 21.6 million rounds. That we got this kahuna that'll wave blank pieces of paper in front of a camera and say, I have the documents right here.
Yeah.
And I just try to tell people, listen, you have to be careful. You've got to double check everything and always source anything that comes from certain websites, all websites really.
Yes.
So the way it begins is an Infowars report, and so I'm just going to let you take it from here. Now you describe
All right.
the report.
The person who originates all of these bullet articles is a gentleman named James Smith over at the Prepper Podcast. He actually monitors the fedbiz.gov website, and Infowars has been stealing his work for quite some time and not giving him any credit for it. I've got the documents.
You don't say.
Oh, yeah. Not Jones. God forbid. Yeah, we're shocked. We're all shocked. So James Smith asked me to write this article because he did the math, and he's capable of doing math, and he spells out how many bullets were in the solicitation. And he showed me the solicitation, and I saw it. I also went to the Infowars article and read it. Paul Joseph Watson put it together, and saw that they had quoted a different solicitation, but it was the same. It was the same solicitation on a different website. So right. I had both solicitations up on screens, made sure all the addresses matched, made sure everything was the same, the solicitation date and all the numbers matched, and then started to try to get to 21.6 million, because the solicitation reads 100,000 of this, 100,000 of that, and 40,000 of this. Well, 100,000 plus 100,000 is 200,000. And then if you add 40,000, you get 240,000.
Right.
And the abbreviation that they used in both of the solicitations was MX. Well, that goes back to Roman numerals. MX stands for thousand, not million.
Right.
That would be MM. So, if you went to, I know that we all went to the indoctrination stations, the public schools, right. But even still, they did teach us, Roman numerals. Apparently,
Back
Paul
in
Joseph
the day,
Watson.
They don't anymore. I don't think.
They don't. Well, yeah, that's why I homeschool my kids, because they don't teach you anything.
They don't teach them cursive writing. They don't.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Before I trail us off into a totally different subject, MX obviously is Roman numerals, and people over say 23 ought to know that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm 35, so I did learn, and but anyway, so I wrote this article. I had exposed Alex Jones prior in other articles for hiring Molly Maroney, who used to work for Stratfor.
Stratfor.
And she worked for Stratfor as an intelligence agent, and then she worked for Parker Media, LLC. And Richard Parker, who started Parker Media, used to work at Stratfor, and subsequently still receives email. He's on their mailing list to receive email from Stratfor, all their intelligence. And that is actually, you can go look that up, because when WikiLeaks put out their documents on Stratfor, Richard Parker's email address, is lumped in there as somebody who receives emails from Stratfor. So in that article, I also mentioned not just that the people over at Infowars can't do math, don't know Roman numerals, and just put out sensational information. And by the way, to this date, they have not written a retraction. Big shocker.
No.
But James Smith thought it was important, and I agreed with him, because this is a perfect example of sensationalism that happens in alternative media that has no substantiation. And since people don't check the source links and don't do the research themselves, which is what I tell my audience and my readers and my listeners all the time, you get lumped into this idea. And there's another phenomena which I've been calling branded loyalty. Once you look up to someone and agree with them, and once they've got you, then they can just lie to you as much as possible, and you will never check their sources. You'll never make sure that they're telling you the truth, because you believe them on a personal level. Branded loyalty in the alternative media is very, very scary phenomena. A lot of people move over from mainstream to alternative, and they don't shift their paradigm. They don't shift their mental state. And so where they look up to their movie stars and their television stars and their radio hosts and their correspondents in the mainstream, they bring that same mentality here to alternative, and they look for the biggest, baddest, loudest guy.
Yeah,
and
infotainment is like crack for people that, you know what I'm saying? It's they seek this little adrenaline rush that they get when they spend 4 or 5 hours just, you know what I'm saying, sitting there in front of their computer listening to this guy rant and rave about how they're getting screwed and, how they ought to be getting ready.
And there's a lot of radio hosts out there that do that.
Oh yeah, he's not alone.
He's not alone.
Listen, I like to just say it like this, Susan. He's a great businessman. He runs a very successful business. He runs a very successful operation. He has some great people. He's a good marketer, but he's not the leader of anything. Certainly not the leader of anything I'd be involved with. So as long as people try to just leave it like that, he's a show host, a very successful show host. I'm okay with it. I stay away from him myself. But I don't think he's anything more than some people may claim that he's like psyop or COINTEL or something like that.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: he has a bunch of websites that people don't know about, and one of them is Infowars.net, and it's almost a mirror site to the Infowars.com. Well, when I was doing research on his connections to Stratfor, I found something interesting. On the mailing list to receive email correspondence and intelligence from Stratfor is, and it's linked in this article, you can see it, and one old path at Infowars.net. So, and then I went to this website, it's called Who Is, WHOIS. Who Is, and you can put in any web address and it'll tell you exactly who owns it. So I linked that up in my article, in this article, the 21.6 million rounds, so people would see. He receives emails directly from Stratfor. The email address is connected to a website that Jones owns outright. You can see from the Who Is website that he owns that website. And so not only did he hire Molly Maroney, but he receives emails from Stratfor. I exposed one of his writers, Jurian Messine, for writing a sensational article back in November of last year. He claimed that the DoD was using population control, as in eugenics, in order to stabilize populations, but the actual DoD press release didn't say population control, it said population stabilization, which goes back to a couple of articles that I've written since then, because see, what happens is, and this is a little rabbit bunny trail, but we'll go down it for a minute because it's important. One of the ways in which we control other countries is, back in the 80s, we had Optor. And that was, in my opinion, the first actual grassroots revolution. They used a book from Gene Sharp, Dr. Gene Sharp, that was written in 1973. That's called Dictatorship to Democracy, and it
Now,
out.
I just want to ask you, what's your opinion of Gene Sharp?
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay, good.
So Gene Sharp wrote this book, and it outlines 193 ways to topple a government with nonviolent resistance. So Optor in Serbia took up this book and created, in my opinion, the first and only revolution where the people toppled their government. During that revolution, the IRI, the International Republican Institute, you can go check out their website, iri.org. They went in there and infiltrated. And they found out what they were doing, the playbook that they were using from Gene Sharp. And Gene Sharp, I'll get to this now. Gene Sharp runs the Albert Einstein Institute, which is funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a laundering service. Basically, our government, through Congress, gives money to this quote unquote nonprofit organization, and they fund these fake revolutions all around the world. They also use the International Republican Institute. So the representatives from the IRI went in there and got a hold of the members, the head of Optor, because they were a nameless, faceless revolution. There was no head. It had all the markings. If you're familiar with Occupy Wall Street or the Arab Spring, that's exactly what it is.
Yep,
The
I was on
fist.
Brooklyn Bridge the day it all set off.
Mm-hmm.
I went down there just to take pictures. Jules came with me, in fact.
Yeah, so what the IRA did was they took this idea and they created all these fake Arab Springs all over the Arab world, and it worked. They got Mohammed Morsi into power. They got the
Yeah,
National Transitional
and
Council into
you'll
power.
see. Did you see that? I'll let you continue, but you see, just the other day, Egypt flooded the tunnels into Gaza.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah, and I said that 2 years ago when everybody was rooting. Hey, this is a grassroots revolution. I said no, and I
No.
said, you know what? And the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see what happens with the tunnels, with one of the only avenues of mercy for the Palestinians. Anyways, I'm going to let you continue.
Well, yeah, I read a lot about these fake revolutions because I was inspired by early on I was inspired by Occupy Wall Street, and
Right, and
once
we
I
might be in the
realized
middle of a fake revolution right
we
now.
are in the middle of a fake
Yep.
revolution. We are exactly in. Look. Occupy Wall Street does the same thing that Optor did. Does the same thing that the Arab Spring do. If you read From Dictatorship to Democracy, which is linked in my article, it's called Nonviolent Resistance: How the U.S. Government Uses Fake Arab Springs to as foreign U.S. policy. And right there at the top, I link a PDF of his entire book, so you can go read it yourself. At the end of the article is a documentary, which I thought was very interesting because it was in their own words. They're talking about how great it is, how they're helping these countries, but what they do is they use the people in order to topple the government. And this goes back to Jurian Massine's article. Now, what the DoD does is once they have this fake revolution, the Department of Defense sends in Blackwater and DynCorp, Blackwater being Academy now, and
Right.
DynCorp and all these other mercenary organizations to stabilize the population, which means to put a gun in their face and say, you either behave or we're going to kill you.
Right. The world police.
Yes, and then they install their patsy, like I said, Morsi, the National Transitional Council, which is a de facto terrorist government, but since they have a seat at the UN, they're recognized as legitimate. And that we shot Gaddafi over that.
Yeah. Now, do
Uh,
you pay attention to Rand reports at all?
like
To any
like
of,
Rand.
well,
Oh, the Rand
the,
Corporation.
the
Yes,
Rand Corporation
yes.
just 2 years ago put out one of their think tank, one of their recommendations are well, they did an entire study on, and they're now training because okay, the Rand report came out. I'm gonna say about 3 or 4 years ago. It was training U.S. military, and we know now that the Marines are training as police to be dropped in as police until to stabilize population. Exactly what you just said. Came out of a Rand report about 4 years ago about starting a world police force
Yes,
using
one of their reports was called Smart Streets. and
Right.
it explains exactly how to secure a city, any city in the United States, because for some reason the way in which our cities are built is different than the way that they structure other cities across the world. So what they did was they did an analysis of all of our cities and all the ways in which we construct our cities and where we have everything situated, and they did a complete analysis on how to and the U.S. Army uses this called Smart Streets. It's linked in one of my articles that I wrote last year on martial law, in order to, like you said, have the military police locked down. They're called specialized military battalions, and I've written about this last year, where they are working with our police departments, and that's a subject that I want to get into later on after we're done
Okay.
with these bullets, because I just wrote an article about that, and I gave it to you, that what's going on with our police departments, what's going on with the paramilitarization of our police. So back to Jurian Massine. I wrote this article. I didn't out him in the article, but I did write the article because, for me, the finding out that we use these fake revolutions and we use these mercenary corporations to stabilize populations and then install our patsy, seeing the playbook of how we do this. And then it subsequently spun me off to write this article on Gene Sharp that I just mentioned. And I've written other articles exposing these fake revolutions and all the different, the National Endowment for Democracy and all these different think tanks like the Rand Corporation,
Yeah.
the Brookings Institute, and the IRI, who go over there and use this as foreign policy in order to because it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. It saves more lives. We don't have to expand our military. We don't have to create a big scene and create a war.
Yeah.
We
And
go in
once the
there.
new government's installed, we just send in police to protect them.
Yes.
And, they go ahead with their sham elections and all that. But, you look at Egypt, and here we are 2 years later, and it's almost certain that there'll be a new government in Egypt very soon. This one's going back. Is there? There's just no way for it to sustain itself. Sharia law is not going to work. The people don't want that.
Well,
I
I
mean,
see something very interesting going on with our foreign policy. Last year, toward the end of last year, Obama stopped buddying up to Netanyahu and
yes,
actually started giving him the finger. And
yeah.
I've done a lot of articles on the BRICS nations and
Do you think
following
that
what.
has anything to do
Oh, I
with Chuck Hagel being nominated?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah, yeah. Let me explain this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let me go back to Obama. Obama is, giving Netanyahu the finger, right? So the BRICS nations, and he's been buddying up to the BRICS nations. He's been working with China. The whole 2008 debacle, China lost a lot of money. And in 2008, when Hank Paulson went into Congress and said, give us $700 billion or we're going to have martial law in the streets, he wasn't kidding. Because China, when they bought up all these mortgage-backed securities, they looked back in their contract, and when the technocratic bank said, dude, we can't pay you that money, China went and said, well, here, it says in our contract that we can just seize the property, so we'll just go ahead and send representatives over there and seize all these properties.
Yeah,
And they were
and you'll
like,
recall that they were given there was Chinese diplomats that were given immunity. They're
yes.
given immunity by then it was Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And they have the immunity to come here, and they also have they have the right to foreclose and evict.
Well, they have special buying rights. The U.S. Treasury, late last year, and I reported on this, the U.S. Treasury gave them special buying rights where they can go directly into the U.S. Treasury's website and purchase bonds without having to go through the auctions, just like everybody else does. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So, I think.
It's almost it's
But
obvious to an idiot that China has special privileges here in the United States.
yeah, but you got to look at it from a bigger picture. Like we
Okay.
were taught to hate the Chinese because they're communists, and I'm not saying to love communism. I'm not, because I think that our president is a red diaper baby, and I've written on that.
Yep.
But the BRICS nations, here's what they're doing. They want to return the global reserve currency from the U.S. dollar to gold. That's why Russia, China, Iran, and India, they've all been trading their fiat. They're still using their fiat, but it's all backed up in its fiat's worth in precious metals.
Yeah.
That's
China
had
and
the
Iran are dealing with each other with gold now.
right, and China's doing it in the diplomatic way. China went into uh, Africa, and instead of destroying their country like we've done with Coney 2012 and all this crap and sending NATO forces in there, China went in to negotiate with governments and said, hey, can we do a barter and trade or some sort of deal so that we can have your resources and we'll give you or pay you for it or we'll barter. And where the US and the UN are going in there and just destroying all of this land, and the UN has been doing massive land grabs and killing people and burning down their huts and murdering people, and then when they rise up we call them rebels and we got to go over there with NATO forces and kill everybody.
Yep.
China.
And Susan, does this play in? This plays into the globalists or the elites making causing the globe to draw sides because of because of Israel and the United States and their rhetoric and their angst and their agenda against Iran and the because of the sanctions. Iran is forced, and so is China, to use gold for their transactions for oil and gold, for oil.
Absolutely.
And
Because
so
because
that's played right into the whole we need, the manipulated gold market around the world.
right. Well, through IAPAC, which is the biggest Zionist lobby group that runs Washington's foreign policy.
Yes, it does.
And, Michelle Bachmann and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and a list of others. I've written articles on IAPAC. You can go look at it on occupycorporatism.com. They pushed all of these bills through to sanction Iran. And so what I see Obama doing ever so slightly, though, because you got to understand, he was playing with the technocrat Zionist elite for a long time, but I see him bunnying up to the BRICS nations. Now, the technocrats are running scared, and what they're doing is, I don't want to give anybody any false hope, because what we're seeing here is a battle between the technocratic Zionists and the BRICS nations, okay? That's really the biggest picture you can possibly get. We all go on the ground level and maybe a couple of rungs up, but the giant picture, what we're seeing here is a battle between the BRICS nations and the technocratic Zionists.
And we're always the ones caught in the middle. The people, the regular people,
absolutely.
the 5.99 billion other people on the planet.
Yes. So Obama is buddying up to China, giving them a little bit extra leeway. The BRICS nations want to return from the US dollar to the gold standard. They want to free energy. They want to stop all of this technocratic banking Rothschild control over energy. We have patents for free energy. You should check out the Keshe Foundation. Obama has signed on to the Keshe Foundation. They have patents. They have things that we can build. We don't have to be dependent on Standard Oil anymore. We don't have to be dependent on the banking industry. And now, don't get me wrong. This is one world government. I'm not saying that the BRICS nations don't want one world government, but it's a different brand. It's a different flavor of it, and it has a little bit more freedom than the Zionist technocratic takeover, where everybody is just dead and whatever's left lives in these Agenda 21 megacities, where you
stack them, pack them, dense population centers.
Exactly. So when I was writing that article about the DOD and the press release and going through what Jurian Messine over at InfoWars had written, I realized not only did he not cover the DOD press release accurately, but that there was another story there that should have been covered because it's a really good story. And so I covered that story. So I linked that up in the article with the 21.6 million rounds. Also going back and exposing Molly Maroney and Jones getting the Stratfor emails directly to one of his websites that he owns. And then, just to put the icing on the cake, my personal opinion, he jumped the shark when he showed up on Piers Morgan. And like for all of us, that was just a day where I watched that thing. I hung my head in shame.
Me too. Well,
because in April,
he performed well for his little Jonesies.
oh, he made us look
But
like the crazy tinfoil hat wearers that they
yes,
say we are. But in April of last year, Jesse Ventura went on the same Piers Morgan show and was diplomatic. He never raised his voice. He never got upset. He never got belligerent. He spoke directly to the audience.
yeah,
And he made
I
his
saw.
point, and by the time he was done, he asked the audience, "Did I make any clear and concise points that made you rethink your position on gun control?" Everyone but one person in the audience raised their hand. That is somebody that knows how to go into the mainstream and represent ideas and speak to the audience when you have that opportunity. I think anyone in the alternative media should do that and get
Yeah,
his.
but you don't get in front of a camera, especially if you're going to claim to be representing other people other than your own lunatic self, and start screaming, 1776 will commence again. I mean,
I absolutely agree with
he
you.
wasn't there to debate gun control. He was there to promote Infowars and to pump out this whole idea that you know, if you're against if you're against gun control, then you're a lunatic that wants to shoot government agents.
Absolutely.
At least that's the idea that the rest of the people like. I like to look at it like, what would my dad think if he was watching this? Because my dad's just a square. If authority says to do it, if the government comes in and tells him he's got to do something, he just goes and does it. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And I try to think of what would my dad think if he was listening to this guy, and he wouldn't listen to him for more than 10 seconds. The whole, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's not talking to the general public. He's talking to the people who subscribe to Infowars and Prison Planet,
Right.
and
And
then
that's
plus
the
pumping that.
unfortunate part because we in the alternative media, at least in my experience, I've gotten the opportunity. I just started this website a little over a year ago, and I have been all the way up the ranks, and I've got everyone. I've spoken to almost everyone who's really big in this industry, and I get the opportunity to continue to do interviews like with you and other people, and so I have a lot of respect in the industry as being well sourced, well documented, honest and accurate information. I don't cover things that are sensational. I don't fearmonger. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
the fear monger.
and I know that when I go on like I just did an interview with Press TV. Now I know that Press TV is owned by Iran. I know that it's state funded and state run, and I know that it's propaganda. I wrote an article exposing RT. But when I was on Press TV, I thought to myself as I'm sitting there in front of the camera, I am speaking to the audience. I am not speaking to the facilitator.
Right.
So if I can inspire one of those people to come to my website and read good sourced information, that is my goal. Do you know what I mean? It's different
Absolutely.
if we go into knowing that we're going into the lion's den and acting like a complete buffoon, or going into the lion's den respectfully, and when a lion shows up, we don't freak out. We just calmly, conduct ourselves. We need more people to understand diplomacy, and that it's not about us and them. It's about the audience. It's about the
Yeah.
people, because we are at a point where we need to stop being afraid
Yeah.
and
We need to
start
stop
doing something
screaming wolf.
about this.
You can only scream wolf so many times before people just stop listening.
Well, his numbers are dropping. He's losing his audience. I really think that he jumped the shark. I think in about 5 or 10 years, Alex Jones will be somebody that used to be on the air, or he'll have like a very small audience. A lot of people are moving away. I know in my circles, and I have a broad range of people that I speak to on Facebook, because I'm trying to make myself as accessible to my audience as possible.
Me
And
too.
I speak to people on Facebook, and I always read emails, and I respond to as many of them as I can. And these people are just, when he came out and did this, all over Facebook, all over Twitter, everybody was like, WTF, this guy, we're done with him. That's it. It's over.
Well, the whole Charlie Sheen thing, the letter to Obama. I mean, I jumped off that ship quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I lost all. I got to admit that I was a junkie for a little while, for a spell. But even me, even this guy, that really was just sort of I found Infowars via Aaron Russo,
Oh,
and to
Aaron
me,
Russo was amazing.
yeah, and to me, the reason that my stay as at Infowars was so short was I could not see any similarities between the man who, I mean, I saw some stuff by Aaron Russo and it inspired me. First of all, my jaw dropped and I had to watch it over and over and over again. And then I started looking into these things, particularly the Federal Reserve and the IRS. And then, I just couldn't put Aaron Russo and Alex Jones together. They weren't. I mean, that infotainment and the industry. We all say a lot of the same things, but some people, say it with conviction and with fake documents, and it's hard to know who to believe. But R.I.P. Aaron Russo. He's the one that sort of I just didn't listen for too long. I would much rather listen to a person who I know isn't just trying to make some money, and not that
Hmm.
that's a bad thing, trying to make some money, but it's a bad thing to make some money, but try to tell people that you're doing it because you're their friend.
Right, right. Can I ask you, really? And after I found out some things about him, and I said, no, I can't work with you. I turned down a paid writing position. I said, by the way, take down all my articles off of your website, and walked away.
Yeah. Well, I don't actually know him, but I'm friends with Jack Blood. I've got friends who are involved with Edna Lane Brown, and I just know other people. And thanks, but I'll pass.
Yeah, I found that out. Like I said, there was a rise last year. I think I attributed a lot of it to the fact that I'm a woman and I'm not soft spoken, and I write hard hitting pieces, and it's always very well sourced.
Definitely some of my favorite stuff.
Thank you. And so I have Jeff Rentz's phone number in my cell phone, and other people. And when I really got to know these people, I realized, my God, this is a business. This is a
It's a
billion-dollar
business.
industry. And the people who are doing the honest reporting are us, the
I
little
know,
guys.
Susan, this is a billion-dollar industry, but where's the body of good work? Where if now just hear me out. You're making $1 million a month just in subscriptions, but you don't help anybody get a lawyer. You won't help anybody get lawsuits into court. You won't help anybody,
Right.
get off drugs. You won't help anybody anywhere do anything
I
unless
know.
they're going to promote Infowars and somehow be a source of income or a source of revenue.
I know. And so,
$1 million a month just in subscriptions alone.
well, it takes at least $5 million to run his nightly news show. Just his nightly news show alone, with all of the graphics, all the
Right.
engineering. Where is he getting all of this money? That's what I don't know. He's got Free Speech LLC, which is a private corporation, so he doesn't have to disclose his finances. And I've looked into him, and I don't know where he's getting his money. I don't know who's donating to him. I don't know who's financing him. But I know that there's no way that through his subscriptions and the kickbacks he gets from the things that he
Ted
hawks on his
Anderson
website,
and them.
there's no way. He's got to have some sort of outside funding that we don't know about.
Right.
He must. He has to, because if he gets $1 million from his subscriptions, then he needs 4 million more just to run the nightly news. That doesn't include anything else that he does. Where's he getting this money? And he goes on the air and
Stratford.
he talks about secession. I did a show about this. It's up on my archives, on radio.occupy corporatism, where he went and said, let them rape the women.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said,
And
what?
secede because my government in Albany is so much less corrupt than the 535 tarred pile up in Washington.
Exactly. Exactly. So he's telling us that this man who goes on Piers Morgan and talks about gun rights, a couple of months later, or a couple of months earlier, he said to his audience, stand down, don't fight back, let them rape the women, let them take over, let the redcoats occupy like they did for a decade during the first revolution. Don't say anything. Write it down. Document everything, but don't fight back. Don't use any. Don't use your guns. Don't. I have a husband. There's no friggin' way anybody's raping me. Okay?
Oh
There's
no,
no
I
way.
have a wife and 2 daughters, and no. Let me tell you, if you rape anyone in my family, I will come find you.
This is ridiculous. And this is the man, and he proclaims, just recently, I think it was like maybe like a month ago, he proclaims that he is the leader of this movement. Who
That's
elected
it.
him? And then he proclaims that Ron Paul is the representative. Well, Ron Paul gets his money from Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. He's on the board of directors for the Singularity Institute, which is a transhumanist movement. He runs
PayPal,
Palantir
right? He's the head of.
Technologies.
Is he the head of PayPal?
He used to be. He sold it. He's the
Oh,
head of Palantir Technologies, which is the biggest technologies corporation that our government employs to do all of these big brother things that we do. And I've written an article about that. This man is dirtier than dirt. And he funds the libertarian movement, and he funds Rand Paul and Ron Paul. So don't tell me that Ron Paul is running anything, okay? 30
yeah,
years career, he flushed it down the toilet with Peter Thiel.
indeed,
That's
indeed. I can't. You said it perfectly. Because I have to admit, in 2008, I was, you know, caught up in the Ron Paul thing with
I
money
was too.
bombs and all that, and
It wasn't until I did research, and that's why I tell everybody and everybody who's listening to
well,
this
the minute I
podcast.
realized he got all this money and then just dropped out without a fight, I was like, no way,
And the day
you're not
before,
my
his son
champion.
endorses Mitt Romney.
Yeah, you're not my. You're not my champion.
No, no. The thing is that when you get to us, and he subscribes to the Ludwig von Mises Foundation, or Institute rather. Do you know who
He
started them?
wants to cut off, these social programs that people become dependent on. Not that I think that they're all that great, but you can't, you know what I mean? That if you do that, then you're no better than a heroin dealer. You get somebody hooked on heroin.
Well, the Mises Foundation was brought into existence by Rockefeller.
Right, right.
They created it, and he's hawking this. I mean, people, you have to do the research. You have to do the research. This rabbit hole, this fake existence, this hamster in a wheel habitat that we live in is so large and so entwined that you
My buddy
have to do the
calls it
research.
life at the McDonald's drive-through window.
Yeah. Oh,
That's what
don't.
we live in. We live in,
Yeah. We really do, and it's everywhere. It's everything. It's even when I stopped telling my son because I said so. It's something my mother used to say to me all the time. I
yep.
It backfires in my face, but I'm raising my son to be an independent thinker. That's why I homeschool him, and my daughter's 2, and she's going to be homeschooled because I went to public school, and I'm just a researcher by nature. I got a paralegal degree. I like learning. I just do. It's in my blood. But you
Well, I
don't
never
learn
made it to
anything.
8th grade.
But look at you. But see, you don't
I've
learn
read
anything.
10,000 books at least, though, in
Y-
my life.
I learned more when I got out of school and I started going into the history section at these bookstores and started reading books, and not just, Barnes and Noble or Borders or whatever, but actually going to used bookstores and getting books that were written in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, and learning about how everything happened, how everything was developed, how everything was created. What woke me up was the financial situation. I watched a documentary by Niles Ferguson on the banking and what happened in 2008. And when I realized what fiat was, uh, it spun me off for an entire year before I even started the website. And I was listening to Alex Jones at the time. My husband and I watched every documentary we could find. We read
Me
every
too. It
book.
was like crack. You couldn't wait for the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I was insatiable, and then I realized, okay, I've learned all of this stuff. I've gone down almost every conspiracy rabbit hole you can go down, and I didn't know any better, so I went down every rabbit hole. And being in this movement myself now, I've learned that when you get in this movement, you get jaded, and we need to maintain that open mind when we first woke up. because anything here is possible.
Yeah.
There are
Patience.
probabilities, but
Well, people
anything.
keep thinking that people, because of some of these other, networks and hosts and the things they promote, there's a whole group of people in our movement that are just waiting for this epic battle to take place, which isn't. We're in it. Your
Yes,
grandparents were in it and they didn't know it, and your grandchildren will be in it.
yes.
Luckily, I do know it, so that's why I'm trained. Look, if you're gonna tell people you live in a prison planet, then you got to tell them how to operate in a prison planet. If the cops didn't see it, you didn't do it. Do everything in the mop closet. That's rule number one in prison.
Yeah, and before we end this, I really want to get into the police departments.
Okay, let's move on then.
Okay. I wrote this article about the police departments. I did 2 months worth of research on this. This was because when I first learned about this, it shocked me. It shocked me almost as bad as when I woke up. It was incredible because this is going on right now and nobody knows about this. And if they do, they're not reporting on it. And that really got me because this is something that and everyone listening can go and look this up for yourself and do something about it tomorrow. Okay? Tomorrow, well, tomorrow's we're broadcasting this on Monday, but yes,
Right.
you can go and look this up for yourself and find out the truth and go to your city council and do something about this the very next day. All you need to do is print out a sheet of paper. So I wrote a lot last year about what was going on with martial law, covering all of the movement of bullets being purchased and the trains with the tanks going by in California and Burbank, and all of these training exercises. And we saw the huge paramilitarization of all of our police departments, shifting dramatically from Barney Fife to Halo, in a
Right.
video game, right?
Yes.
There was one dot that was not connecting with me because every time we saw these training exercises, everybody in alternative media kept saying they're acclimating the public to martial law. They're getting you ready for it. They're getting your mindset ready for it. They want to
They're
train you.
training for it.
No, that's not
No.
what they're doing here.
Okay.
Okay? Now this is
Oh,
gonna
right. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
no,
I
this is
wasn't following you, but now I am.
although I'm about to blow the top of your head right off. So all of these all of these police departments around the country, and it's every single police department in the country. In fact, there's in 2008, statistically speaking, there were 18,000 active police departments. Okay. In 2008, statistically speaking, there were 461,000 sworn police officers. That does not include your sheriff's department and your deputies. I'm talking about police
Right.
officers.
Police. People
Police.
that aren't voted on.
Yes, exactly. So these police departments are all corporations, okay? They are, excuse
And
me.
you can look into this and find out yourself.
Yes, you can, and I'll explain in just a minute how you can do that. All of these police departments are what is called public benefit LLCs. Okay, so they are private. It's a specialized private nonprofit corporation that is hired by your city contractually, and you can verify the contract on the city's website or the police department's website. And if it's not, you can call the city or call the police department and ask for them to put that contract up on their website. But it's public knowledge, so you can go and get that contract. What I found out is because they are public benefit LLCs, they're corporations, they have to abide by corporate law. The chief of police is named as the CEO of the corporation. And they all go under the name Police Association. So it would be insert your city's name, Police Association. New York City Police Association, Chicago Police Association, Portland Police Association, Seattle Police Association, Austin Police Association, okay? Now, most of these police associations, and just to give you an idea of how many, I would say between 60 and 75% of these police associations are in dissolution. And for those of you who don't understand what that means, in corporate law, if a company dissolves, they no longer have the right legally to do business in the state in which they're incorporated. Okay? So since your police department is a public benefit LLC, a corporation, when these corporations dissolve, they are no longer allowed to do business in the city in which they were hired, in the state in which they were incorporated. Now,
Okay, I'm following you.
what you can do is you go to the Secretary of State website in your state. You go and look under business search, and each Secretary of State website is a little bit different because I checked them all over the country. In the state of Oregon, where I live, there are 12 police departments that are they're all corporations, but there are 12 police departments that dissolved. Some of them dissolved a couple of years ago. Some of them dissolved recently. In the state of Washington, there are 30, and that includes the Seattle Police Department, that dissolved. Okay, so I'm going to repeat myself again. When a corporation dissolves, they no longer have the right to conduct business in the state in which they were incorporated. So, to give you an example, if Target Corporation dissolved today, they cannot open their doors the next day and tell their employees to put on their uniforms, the khakis and the green and the red shirt, and go to work. Okay? So if you are working for a corporation that doesn't exist, you cannot perform the duties in which you were hired to do because the corporation you work for doesn't exist anymore. This has very big implications. First of all, I'll give you an example in Beaverton, Oregon. The police department dissolved. The Beaverton City Police Department, known corporately as the Beaverton Police Association, dissolved on January 5th of 2012. The contract that they had to perform policing services for the city was up in June of 2012, and there's no new contract. So first of all, the corporation
that's something
dissolved.
that people don't understand is that police all, and I know this for a fact, it's all done by contract. They may lease the same building, but you can get different policing. You can get anyways. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, you can get different. They're all private security firms. It's no different than Wackenhut, and on a grander scale, it's no different than DynCorp or Blackwater. These are private security firms. They're private armed guards.
Well, and that's why you remember 2 years ago when Alex Jones went, ape crazy about a town up in, I believe it was Montana. I can't remember now. I think it was in Montana, and they hired private security to run a jail in a town, and he harassed this poor public relations woman for the company, for the security company, until she, in fact, she had to get an order of protection. She had to hire bodyguards because she was scared for her life because of this lunatic.
Well, yeah, and
that's not as uncommon as you might think.
No, it's all over this country. When you go to the Secretary of State website in your state, and all the listeners need to go do this, okay? You go and you search under business, and then you search under corporations. When you do a corporate search, put in the words police association. The list that you will get are all the police associations. That includes all of your police departments and all of the nonprofit associations that go with it. There are various other police association nonprofits that are not your police department. However, all of your police departments are known corporately as police associations. And they use the word association because it has a union connotation to it. They want you to think that this is a union. They don't want you to realize that they're actually a corporation, because a union has a specific connotation. When I say union, you think of a group that makes sure that if you work for a company, you get all the benefits and rights that you deserve. This is not a union. This is an actual public benefit LLC, calling themselves an association. Now, when I looked this up in Oregon, where I live, like I said, I found 12 police departments that were dissolved. I found in Washington State 30. I found over 50 in the state of California. I found a laundry list of them in the state of Ohio. And when I looked all over the country, every single one of these police departments were known as police associations under their corporate name. And if you want to verify this, you can go to the Better Business Bureau, and if they have listed their name with the Better Business Bureau, all you have to do is take the name and address from the Better Business Bureau as the police association and cross-reference that with the name and address, or the address and phone number rather, of the police department. And when they match, you've got a match. When you go to the Secretary of State website and you click on their documents, you will see that the address matches the police department's address. So you've got a match. That's how you do research. That's how you cross-reference yourself. Now, from a legal standpoint, I'll go back to the Beaverton City Police Department. When the Beaverton City Police Department, known corporately as the Beaverton Police Association, when they dissolved in January of 2012, that means that they no longer had legal jurisdiction over the people of the city of Beaverton. That means everyone who was arrested, everyone who was ticketed, everyone who came in to the municipal court for an infraction, everyone jailed, has legal recourse against the city, against the chief of police, against the mayor, because the mayor signs the contract for the city to contract these private security firms. And no one is talking about this.
So what do you think? Are they going to all eventually become federalized?
Here's what I found when I started digging even farther, because I've been doing this long enough to know I can smell something going on. You probably know this. You're in this business long enough, you know that there's a bigger picture going on here. So I went back into my other articles that I written last year on martial law, and the one dot that I could not connect was the connection between the police departments, who are private security firms, and martial law. Well, when I looked up these private security firms and found out that they're corporations, I found the DHS connection. What DHS has done is they've created a program for non-federalized law enforcement agencies. In fact, in 2010, they created a sub-agency that's called non-federalized law enforcement agencies. They have then used all of these private security firms that we call police departments contractually, and are through FEMA. There is a national what is the name of it? National Federalized Grant Program. I'm sorry. What they do is they give the police department, this private security firm, money through FEMA. Then they send the police officers to these camps. They're called DHS Federalized Training Camps, and they're all over the country. There's 5 of them. And in the article that I gave you, there's links to all different 5 of them. You can go to their website.
And I'll drop these articles in the chat room for those of you that are listening in the chat room.
Mm-hmm. You can click on the source links and you can see, there's one in this Washington, D.C. There's one in Georgia. There's one in New Mexico. In fact, the 240,000 rounds of hollow point bullets was ordered by DHS to go to the New Mexico Training Center. And what they do with these police officers is they have military there, and they are training them on military tactical operations. Now, yeah. I'm an Air Force brat.
Right.
Okay. And I know people who are in other branches of the armed forces, active and non-active. And I remember from my father telling me, you never train in a situation that you don't plan on doing combat. Okay. So what they're doing here is the military, with the military MPs, the specialized military police battalions, which I reported on last year, these guys are training these private security firms through DHS with a grant program, tax dollars from you. You're paying for these private security firms to go to these locations, these 5 locations around the country, and be trained on military tactical operations. Now, here's where it gets really scary, if that isn't terrifying enough. When we see all of these training exercises, when they were locking down cities in Wisconsin last year, when they had the National Guard just patrolling the neighborhoods, when we saw this year the police were working with the military in Black Hawk helicopters, sorry, in Miami-Dade. They were shooting blanks out of AR-15s, and the
Right.
police departments were down there participating in this training exercise. The reason why they're doing this out in the open is because they're training the police for martial law, not you and me.
I believe so too.
The police officer needs to know the difference between friendly fire and enemy fire. The police officer needs to hear the difference between fire from a AR-15, an actual military gun, as opposed to a shotgun or something that someone would have domestically. The
Right.
police officer needs to be trained in rappelling techniques. This is something the military does. The police officer needs to be trained in other military tactical operations. So what they're doing is they're creating this non-federalized law enforcement agency. They're turning our police departments into non-federalized law enforcement so that if they needed to instill martial law in the United States, it doesn't matter if there's a split in the military. It doesn't matter if we have enough troops here to facilitate locking down the country. Your local police department will get a phone call, and your local police department will lock down the city.
They'll just do what they're told.
Right, long enough to allow the military to come in and take over. That is what's going on here. And nobody else
Which
is
won't
talking
take long
about
where
this.
I am. 10th Mountain Division is not too far from me.
Right. And so in alternative media, we're hearing, oh, they're acclimating us to martial law. Oh, they're doing this. No, you don't need to be worried about the split in the military or anything like that. You need to be worried about your local police department.
Yep.
And that's why I'm talking about this. Because
Yeah.
right now, these police departments are operating illegally. These police departments they're all private security firms, and they've all been incorporated. And if they're in dissolution, it means that you need to go down to your city council and say WTF, and have the document in your hand, print it out, and take it to the city council meeting. You have to make sure that the city council meeting it allows for public speaking, because not all of them do.
Right.
But if they open it up, you go to the podium and you make flyers, okay? You make flyers and you hand it out to every single person who's in the audience with you. And you get this information out to everyone in your city, because it affects every single one of us.
Yeah, because if we don't, remember the old crime shows, The Streets of San Francisco?
I do remember that, yeah.
Well, guess what? The new show is going to be called The Streets of Fallujah, and that's what's happening right now. You're an insurgent. I'm a potential insurgent. And that's the way they treat us when they kick our door in and they enter our house. They come in. They were trained by the military. If you flinch, you're done.
Absolutely. And so what we're seeing here with our sheriff's department is all across the country, they're trying to get rid of that elected official position into an appointed position so they can install their patsy.
Yeah, I have Sheriff Jeff Christopher from Sussex County, Delaware, coming on my show. I had the pleasure of meeting him this year. Every year with my friends from Poker Face, we do a 3-day event down in Allentown, and we had Sheriff Christopher. He's in Sussex County. Bo Biden, son of
Joe.
You know who? Yeah. And he's down there in Delaware trying to take away the arresting power of the sheriff. And incidentally, this is one of the few sheriffs left that refuse to take, protect, and serve off their cars. They don't dress in black. So yeah,
this phenomenon is happening all across the country, because I've been following the federal gun grab, and I've been following all of these sheriffs who've come forward publicly.
I think it's the sheriffs. If you're gonna count on anyone,
it's your
count
sheriff.
on the military. Don't count on the police. It's your sheriff, man.
It's your sheriff. And you know what? If your city council won't listen to you, remember this. Your sheriff has jurisdiction over every police department in his county.
That's right.
He can say to the police department, release that man, okay? So if your city council won't listen to you, and I promise you they probably won't, you take that information and go down to your sheriff's office, and we need to be diplomatic here, okay?
Yeah.
We need to stop being upset and throwing fits and having all these rallies. We need to go diplomatically, make an appointment with your sheriff, sit down like a regular human being, bring him these documents and say, can you please do something about this? Because this is corruption, this is illegal, and it's going on right underneath your nose. And if you don't know about it, I'm letting you know. and hold him accountable to it.
Yeah, because there's going to be an election soon. You know what I mean? And if nothing else, then you can make it your life's work to get out there and beat feet during the campaign and try to expose. I mean, that's one way.
That's
You don't
one
have
way.
to be for uh, any of the candidates running for sheriff. You can
No,
just go door to door and hand out flyers and
you
say,
don't
"Listen,
even
these are
have to
the things you
be,
need to know about the sheriff."
yes, you don't even have to be pro gun or anti gun. These police departments, these private security firms that are hired by your city, if they are dissolved corporations, they don't have the right to police you. Okay,
Nope.
first of all. Second of all, if they don't have a valid contract with the city, they don't have the right to police you. Okay? So if
And
anything
don't I
else,
know it because we didn't for the longest time. My little town here in upstate New York, the contract was up. We had this sort of like a temporary contract with a police, a chief of police, and a department that's like 40 miles from here, on a whole on the other side of the county, for
mhm,
almost 3 years. Yeah, it was turned into a big thing. He was billing both. He was getting paid by both towns. But anyways, yeah, it's a contract.
it's a
They
contract.
contracted out
It's
almost
public
every
record.
police.
You can go and look at it. I looked at it. I saw the contract was up in my city, and I called the police department. They wouldn't give me the information until I told them my name, address, and phone number, so I hung up the phone. But I'm going to my next city council meeting where, and I encourage everybody to do the same thing. And if not, I've got the name and phone number of my sheriff. I will bring him this information. What I'm saying here is the DHS is militarizing our police. They will use them as the ground force infantry. If you understand military, you understand that you need a ground force infantry in order to facilitate any operation. They are now tactically training these police officers to be honorary military, if you
Yeah.
want to say. And so when they get that call from martial law, your police department is going to lock down your city. And then when the military generals get in, that's when they take over. But this is the easiest, fastest way to do it, because if you took all of our active military back and brought them home, you still wouldn't have enough physical bodies in order to lock down martial law. And that was something that was bugging me, because last year when I was reporting on this, I kept saying, but this is an anomaly. What's going on here? What's the dot? And this is the dot that connects it, okay? And all of the source links are up in my article. You can check this out. There's 5 training centers. They're teaching them to shoot hollow point bullets out of military guns. They're teaching them in tactical operations. And when they get that call, it's your police department you need to worry about,
And you can
not the
see
military.
they're making sure that, or they're trying to make sure that there is a difference between the weapons they're using, the sounds, and the weapons we're going to be allowed to have.
Yes, that's why they're getting rid of the assault weapons, the rifles. That's why they're getting rid of the high capacity magazines. They don't want a problem. When they lock down these cities, they don't want the people in the neighborhoods to be able to defend themselves.
That's right. And if they do, they want the cops to know.
They want the cops to know what these guns sound like. What it's,
I agree.
it's amazing to me. And so I'm talking about this on your show, and I've gone on other shows, and I'm continuing to talk about this because in our movement here, we talk about things all the
Yeah.
time. I have a
We're
radio
worried
show too.
about Chinese troops and UN troops, and we're worried about all these troops on the border that are just waiting to come in here. And not me. I'm more worried about the police up the road.
You should be.
I
You should
am.
be, because that's the guy. Your
He's the one that's
police.
going to kick your teeth in. He's the one that's going to
Yeah.
drag you out of your house. He's the one that's going to initiate the standoff.
Yes.
If you resist, it's the cop up the road that's going to initiate the entire standoff where get burnt to the ground like Dorner,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That was so ridiculous. I talked about that on my show this Thursday because, again, here we go with the crap. The
Yeah.
the cabin burns down. There's a charred body, but right next to the body is a wallet that isn't burned.
Yeah, I
And
call it the 9/11 passport driver's
exactly,
license.
it's the same crappy. I'm not saying that Christopher Dorner was not a real human being, but this is a story. We've
Yeah,
heard this story before. In fact, before
just
9/11, we heard that story before. We heard it with Pearl Harbor. We heard it with the Gulf of Tonkin. We heard it with every other false flag.
USS Liberty. Oh,
Yes, these are stories that we continue to hear, and they keep using the same characters, the same plot lines, the same details in the story. When are we going to realize that these are grim fairy tales that we're hearing? And it's just, you know what I'm interested in? I'm interested in the fact that they were using um, hunter drones to find him. I was interested in the fact that they were busting through people's houses.
pretty much shoot to kill. You kick in
Yes.
any door. If anybody resists, just shoot them right there. If they got any guns in the house, throw them in your car.
What about the woman and her daughter? 30 bullets into their truck.
Yeah. Their blue Nissan or their blue Toyota. It wasn't even a Nissan, a gray Nissan. You know, just ridiculous. People of LA, I hope the people of LA open their eyes right now and realize the police are not there to protect them. If you get in
No,
the way of them, they will shoot you down.
no,
And
it's a private security firm. We need to stop calling them police departments and
yeah,
start calling them private security firms. They are private armed guards.
mercenaries, right?
Mercenaries, yeah.
Mercenaries.
And I don't want to incite people. If you live in a city where the police department is a dissolved corporation, I'm not telling anyone that if you get pulled over and to go mouth off to the cop, okay? Because the
Non-aggression.
cop does not know that he's working for a dissolved corporation. I'll tell you that right now, okay?
You're right.
You need to go to the city council. You need to go to your mayor. You need to go to the sheriff. You need to go to your local media. Let's bust through the door here. Let's cross over here. I went to my local news stations here. When I did my Press TV interview, I actually went down to the news station to be on camera, and I spoke with the people down there, and I told them about this story. And so I emailed them my article, and I'm talking with them to get it on local news. That, if anything, call your local newspapers, call your local news television station, and tell them about what's going on. If we
Get the
expose
evidence
this,
first.
yes, get the evidence. Go to the Secretary of State website and get the evidence, and then call your local newspapers. Go to your city council meeting. Call your sheriff and talk to him. If we expose this, then guess what? This little scheme that DHS has to turn our all of our police departments into non-federalized law enforcement agencies,
Yeah.
that goes out the friggin' window.
Yep.
Okay?
Fusion centers everywhere.
Yes.
We're stuck in a list of lists. There's like because I like to look at everything this way. It's all part of the algorithm, and they're building these huge. Listen, in Salt Lake City or in Utah, they're building a facility that will store. I mean, that will be able
Yoda
to store.
It will store yottabytes of information.
Yeah, it will be able to store, a Googleplex or whatever,
Bigger.
some
Yeah.
some outrageous number that you can think of. And once they've got it built, and once they start, it's like people keep telling me, "Well, you're on a list." Yeah, man, I'm on a list. It's just a list. It's a list, and then there's a list of lists. So I'm on the list in my town, and then my town is on the list in my county, and my county's on a list in my state, and they're all fused together. And we're going to allow this, and because they're all private security, they're not bound by any sort of public trust.
Nope, they're not
The
bound by the
sheriff
laws. The
is
sheriff
bound by
is.
public trust, and he can be found in breach of trust.
Right. And go ask your sheriff, how does he feel about the Second Amendment? Is he going to stand up for the Constitution and the Constitution of his state? And if he's not, then at least you know where you stand. There are other
Right.
avenues. But if we don't, now is not the time to sit and eat your chips and watch your game shows or whatever reality show you're watching or whatever you're watching on television. Now is the time. Now is not the time either to join forces with Occupy Wall Street and get pissed off and go do some rally. Now is the time to gather the information and give it to the appropriate people and make such a stir that
Well, you got
something has to be done.
you got your blood in the street people. You got your, the tree of liberty has to be watered with we watered that tree. That tree's been what we need something new. We need something newer, a better idea than watering the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
Well, these people who
We
are out
keep
there
watering
talking
that
about
tree,
that,
and then a few years later, it demands more sacrifice. It's like a god. I'm
yeah,
not gonna
it's
I'm not gonna sacrifice. I'm not giving my children's blood to a god.
Right. These people who are saying that they're not going to be there with you.
No, they're
I know
not.
radio show hosts who go on radio every single day and incite his audience to buy more bullets, to stand up and shoot people, and he calls for the murder of everybody he can think of. And we need to stop listening to these people. Stop listening to Alex Jones. Stop listening to all these sensational radio hosts. Get this information. Be the researcher. Go back to Bill Cooper and do the research yourself. And when you found out the truth, take it and tell everyone you know, because if everyone in your city knew that the police department was a private security firm corporation that dissolved and that they have no legal jurisdiction to drive around, and it's tantamount to dressing up as a cop and impersonating a police officer every time you get pulled over, that is huge. And that's something that's real. It's happening in every city. It affects every single one of us. And it needs to be stopped. Because the bigger picture is they're using these guys to facilitate martial law. They will be the ground force troops. If we take out their police departments, what are they going to do? They're going to have to come up with
We
another
take them
scheme.
out legally because, again, the blood in the streets and all that. Those are our brothers and sisters. Those are our cousins, our uncles, our
Mm-hmm.
nephews. Doesn't matter if they're sheeple, if they work for a firm that you don't agree with.
Right.
If you're talking about revolutions and blood in the streets and this and that, you're talking about people you know.
Yeah. And
And I
nobody
think
here.
that it ought to be the most difficult decision, not something that you can just come to. And I stand firm in my belief of non-aggression. I am willing to die for a lot more than I'm willing to kill for. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, and it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to be scared out of our mind. We don't have to read the sensationalism up on Infowars and Drudge Report and Intel Hub and all these other sensationalists who just want you to click on their website. If you see something in the mainstream, you know what I do? I go and check it out. If they name a company, I go and do a Google search. If they name a person, I go and do a Google search. If they name a document and they don't source the document, I go and look up the document myself and read it. The more educated we are and the more open-minded to the idea that this thing is so controlled that every single thing, all the way down to the way in which you think about life, has been taught to you and none of it is natural, then
Yeah.
you open up to the possibilities. And when you do
Part
the
of the reality
research,
bubble.
the reality bubble,
You want
exactly.
to talk about bubbles, but we're in a reality bubble,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I
and
know.
it's gonna burst. It's because it's all inorganic. You know what I'm saying? We went from cavemen to sky rises in such a short period of time that there has to be some hidden knowledge or somebody somewhere got a
Well,
hold of
like with this
something.
meteor, I just wrote this article that'll go out on Monday. I never report on something instantly
Right,
because
right.
there's too much garbage going on.
Yeah, because then you end up being that red alert, red alert,
Yep,
red alert guy.
exactly. So I sat back and watched, and now I'm looking at all these reports, and so I realized, this meteor that hit, there's so many conspiracy theories out there that I wrote an
Is there
article.
really?
Yeah, oh my God, everything from missiles being launched to that it is aliens. Everything.
Good Lord.
So I just wrote an article just pointing out all of this disinformation. When you hear a story and it rattles your brain, your first response which should be to research. It should not be to freak out.
Yeah. You had to go out and buy a box of ammo. Not that you shouldn't.
Not that
I
you
mean,
shouldn't.
you're not going to be. Look, if the police, when if the people in control on both sides get their druthers, there's going to be Toyota pickups, like we see on TV with 50 caliber anti-aircraft guns and 20 rednecks, driving up and down the street, looking for troopers, and I'm not down for that.
Right.
People get this idea that what is it, 75, 80 million gun owners in America, that they're quote patriots. They think you're a lunatic.
Yeah.
They think I'm a lunatic. Most of the people in your community that are lawful gun owners, even if they're Second Amendment supporters, think you're a lunatic, and
That's
I'm a
right.
lunatic.
That's right.
I don't want, don't get that disillusion that if something kicks off, that all of a sudden there's going to be, you know, millions of people looking to group up with you and follow your vision for what you think. Most people don't even have a clear vision of what they want. They're
Well,
just waiting, and any solutions they want, they don't want to talk about solutions. If it can't be, the easy button solution where tonight the world is like it is. We hit the easy button. Tomorrow, it's great. Everybody gets fed, everybody gets clothed. It's just not going to happen like that,
no, it hasn't been happening like that for a long time.
right? Well, you got to have some patience, and you got to realize that it takes effort, man. And if you don't even put forth enough effort to try to teach and to try to articulately, calmly, rationally talk, not to bullhorn people, but to try to discuss things, because you don't have to look at it like I'm a political scholar or something like this. Look at it like this. These are things that are important, and I have the right to be able to discuss them. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
have the right to my opinion. So do you. But it's obvious now that there's a system that doesn't work. War on drugs, war on poverty, war on terror. All these different wars. Now we know being run by private corporations.
Absolutely. And everything is incorporated. Your town, your city,
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
birth certificate is traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and that's been
So,
proven.
yeah, it is. I didn't believe it. I went and looked. I went and got my birth certificate out and put the numbers in to the New York Stock Exchange, and yes, it is. Yeah, it was right there. And I'm not. I know that there's a lot of weirdness in every movement. There's a lot of weirdness in the sovereign
Sure.
movement, but you don't have to
Honesty.
become this crazy, weird, conspiracy tinfoil hat wearer to figure out the reality that this is not.
No.
There really is a group of small people. There's a couple thousand. They are trying to get a hold of the world. They are the banking elite. They are the technocrats. They are the large, gigantic corporations. They have been doing this for years, decades, hundreds of years. They the what we're like we were talking about earlier, what we're seeing here is a battle between the BRICS nations and the technocratic Zionists, and everything that falls in between is just a gaining of control
Yeah, and
over
and we're
everything.
the fodder. They don't care
Everything
about
is.
us.
These eco-fascists, the eco-terrorism movement, which is what I call them, eco-fascists, they have their roots in the 1960s of blowing up buildings, of murdering people. No, Al Gore doesn't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
he
it.
doesn't. And I'm
No,
not down with that myself. I gotta
no,
let you know that.
no. I mean, I recycle. I go and buy. I go to secondhand stores and antique stores, and there's nothing
Amen,
better than a
sister.
cast iron skillet. I'll tell you that.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
but but at the same respect, I'm not like, freaking out over biodiversity. I don't
Yeah, you're
think.
not the lady that walks down the street and does the little finger shame finger thing at somebody spraying, hosing down their driveway.
No.
There's
That
people
you
there,
know I
there's
just wrote
people
this
who need
article.
water in the desert right now. Shame.
Let me tell you this about that, okay? I just wrote a couple of articles about these droughts because, first of all, we can't talk about water unless we talk about the privatization, about the fact that they're siphoning all of the water out of our lakes, rivers, and streams
I
all
live.
across the globe, okay?
Yeah, right. We were
And
fighting
bottling
these.
it.
We were fighting here in this region, the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence Seaway Water Resource Compact, and you know what? We lost, and the UN controls these waters,
Yes, they do. And they are
all their
siphoning all that water
tributaries.
out. And it's not just when you buy bottled water from Dasani or
Oh man, it's the water. They're talking about the water that lands from the sky into your yard because it runs off into a brook or a stream, and that either runs into or runs out of a tributary of up here in the Northeast. It's the St. Lawrence Seaway, but it's literally every lake, river, and stream. Somehow either the majority of them
they're
are
siphoning
somehow.
them out, and then they're saying global warming, okay? They just went into Africa and they found huge underground water aquifers. So what do? They send in NATO forces and
Yeah,
take
yeah.
over the land, okay? This is how this operates. So when you talk about droughts, and let me tell you something else.
Well, look. Do you think they're engineered? Because you look at 3 years ago, George Soros buying all this flooded uh, farmland, and then 2 years later, there's a drought, and that land is that land was flooded like the Nile Delta, and
Right.
I just
Well, you've got two things going on. You've got the geoengineering, which goes back, it really literally goes back to 1908, okay? That's
yeah,
how
I
far
was
back
gonna
it
say
goes.
that. You're right.
But you have the geoengineering, which is altering our natural planet. And then you have these technologies like just recently, I wrote an article about this in Dubai. They created with using Tesla technology, which supposedly doesn't exist, right?
Right.
What they did was
Blue
in the
sky.
desert in Dubai, they used this Tesla coil and basically what it looks like is a tower. And if you took an umbrella and took the umbrella, the
Yeah,
fabric
I
off of
know
it,
exactly what it looks like.
they're ionizing the atmosphere, creating dust particles, ionizing the dust particles to be attracted to each other, so they will create clouds. Then they're ionizing the water molecules in the atmosphere to dump the rain and using seeding in order to get those clouds to rain. They had 52 successful experiments with this technology and they were able to make it rain, thunderstorm rain, torrential rain in Dubai. Okay? So not only are they geoengineering the planet and controlling when you get rain and when you don't, and when you get snow and when you don't. And by the way, I've written 2 articles on this. What we just saw with this what just happened in the Northeast,
Yeah.
that was cloud seeding. Okay, they did the same
Which one,
thing.
Sandy, or this last storm that supposedly we all buckled down for?
Yeah, this
I live in
snowstorm.
Syracuse, New York.
Okay, this snowstorm that you just had, that was all cloud seeding. Okay, they did the same thing in 2009 in Beijing, China. They seeded the clouds so heavy that they actually caused billions of dollars worth of damage to the city of Beijing with all the
Remember?
snow.
Do you remember the story just before the Olympics where they were doing almost the opposite of seeding the clowns there. They were drying them up, and at some point there was a story I read about bags of cement that came out of the sky. They were using cement or Portland or some sort of mixture of lime and Portland cement to dry up, to soak up the rain.
Well, what they can do with the geoengineer when they do the chemtrails, it has multiple faceted applications. But what they can actually do is they can create they can dry up the atmosphere with what they're putting. Some of the things in the chemtrails actually dry up the
In
atmosphere.
conjunction with HARP facilities
In
around the
conjunction
world.
with HARP, they can steer the jet stream. When they raise the ionosphere, they can control the jet stream, and that controls your rain and all your other storms. Then they can steer
Because literally,
hurricanes.
they only need to alter it by a few feet. You know what I mean? Before,
Yeah,
if you alter it by a few feet, 2,000 miles away, that translates to a different pattern. Period.
absolutely. And they use the aluminum aerosols, the sulfuric aerosols in the atmosphere, and that's
Hence
cooling the
the
planet.
patent on aluminum seed.
Yes, and yeah, it goes back to Monsanto because these seeds will be able to withstand all of this geoengineering, not your normal organic seeds. And if you grow anything outside, it's being contaminated. There's nothing you can do about it. I don't care if it's organic or not. It's contaminated. And if you have a grow tunnel or if you have a greenhouse, these particles, these nanoparticles are so small that it goes right through the plastic. It goes.
Nano. They're
Yeah.
nano.
Yeah. So all of our every single bit of our
Smaller
food is
than the three
contaminated.
mil that you're. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry
it
about
doesn't matter if it's organic or not, it's contaminated. But all of these schemes come together to control resources. These eco-fascists have cataloged every single plant, every single animal, insect, everything on the planet. They know exactly where it is, where it lives, how much of it is on the planet, whether it's gone extinct or not. The ridiculousness about the Arctic ice sheets. Well, the Arctic goes through the same thing that we all go through. It goes through a warm season and a cold season, and during the summer and spring, it breaks up, and during the winter, it refreezes.
it. At the height of the solar maximum, the solar cycle, things
Exactly.
we're there right now.
We are there right now, and I've written a couple of articles recently. The thing that nobody is talking about is the fact that our planet is cooling. We're
I
going
do.
Yeah, I'm glad that you do because
Well, because that's the trend over the last 30, well, actually the last 30 years, the trend is an actual cooling trend.
and it's because of all of this aluminum and these sulfuric aerosols that David Keith and Bill Gates are spraying up in the air. They're reflecting all the heat back out into space. Meanwhile, the NASA Terra satellite has confirmed with data, empirical data, you can't argue with it, that our Earth is naturally expelling heat into space as it normally would. It doesn't need our help. And so what they're doing is they're compounding it. They're causing an ice age.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
eventually.
yeah, they're going to cause us. It's problem, reaction, solution.
Well, yeah. And then so what you gotta pay Al Gore for carbon taxes. You gotta you gotta stop driving your cars. You gotta have these these Agenda 21 cities. I reported on this and then I saw pictures of it in real life and it blew my mind.
All about, yeah, control. We're not, the planet's not destroying itself.
No, we are.
Yeah.
And it's a group of a small group of people that are doing this, and it's really true. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not, I listen, I read everything, I listen to everything, and I research everything. And
All my research has told me that there's enough for everybody. It's been badly, badly, badly mismanaged.
even the World Population Fund documents will have said that it's not the amount of food that is produced in this country globally. It is access to food.
Yeah. Yeah. Access.
That's
Now it's speculation. Speculators uh, control that access.
If we had such a food crisis, why has the federal government consistently for decades paid farmers not to grow food?
Amen, sister. I live in, dairy corn country, and they pay them not to grow. They pay them to leave. They pay farmers to grow it and then just leave it in the field, not pick it.
Exactly. Because
And they say it's for the deer, but it's ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. I live in Agenda 21 country here in Oregon. I mean, it is ridiculous. But, we pay attention to what's actually going on.
All right, Susan. Let's. I guess we could wrap it up now. I want to rattle out. Here's what I want to do. First of all, we'll just end the show by going over Secretary of State, your Secretary of States. We'll go over that quick process. Spend about 3 minutes telling everybody again. Go to this website, what to look for, what evidence to find, what to print out, and then we'll make that a homework assignment from the
Yeah.
Jim Freeland show.
Okay, what you can do.
And then I want you to give out your email and your website.
Okay. What you can do is go to the Secretary of State website in your state, do a business search. Under corporations, you put in police association, and you'll come out with a lot of police associations because every police department is known corporately as a police association. It's the Portland Police Association, Seattle Police Association. You go and look and see who is active and who is inactive. And every state is a little bit different. Like I said, in Ohio, it says canceled or dead. In Oregon, it says active or inactive. It says ACT for active. It says INA for inactive. Take all that information and you can click on each individual police association and look at the documents. If they are dissolved, you can actually look at the document of dissolution. The Secretary of State website will tell you the date that they dissolved. Some of these police associations dissolved, were reinstated, and are now currently dissolved. You take this information, print it out, go to your city council meeting, and when they allow the public to speak, go to the podium, print out flyers with this information and this explanation on how everyone can do this, and pass it out to the audience. And go up to the podium and explain this to your city council, because your city council is responsible for this, the mayor is responsible for this, and the chief of police is responsible for this. If they won't listen to you, go to your sheriff and bring him the documents, because he has jurisdiction over every police department in his county. If they won't listen to you, and even if they do listen to you, I recommend go to your local media. go to your local news station, go to your local newspapers, and bring them these documents and ask them to report on this and give them all the information that you found and make it easy for them to report on it.
And if they won't be the media, then you be the media and you report on it. And
You
tell your
report on
friends
it.
and tell their friends.
Yes, tell everyone you can in your neighborhood, and have everybody go down to the next city council meeting and maybe flood the city council meeting. Set up an appointment with your sheriff and speak to him like a normal human being. But if your city council won't say anything, then sure, wait till they have the next public opening and get a group of your friends and go down there and call up the media and say, hey, we're coming down there, and make as much noise as you can, because these police departments because these police departments are being federalized by DHS, and they are the ground infantry in martial law. If we do have martial law, it's your police department you need to worry about. So let's take them out.
Amen. Amen. All right, that's your homework assignment. Now, how can people just find Susan Postle, not Jim Freeland Show and our thing together? How can they just find you? OccupyCorporatism.com is one place.
OccupyCorporatism.com. You can also go to radio.occupycorporatism.com, and you can listen to the Region 10 Report. That's my radio show on American Freedom Radio. You can listen to me live on American Freedom Radio on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Central. You can listen to my archives on radio.occupycorporatism.com. My show is also syndicated on the Prepper Podcast Network under the Educational Podcasts category. I'm also on UCY.tv. And my articles are reposted all over the internet. Yeah. So, like I tell my listeners, you'd have to shut off the internet if you didn't want to run into me. But that's okay, because I'm one of a small group of people like yourself that are bringing actual, factual, sourced, good information. I'm also working with Vinnie Eastwood, and we are in the process of launching an idea that Vinnie Eastwood has been working on for 6 years called the Guerrilla Media. And this will be a central hub where you can go to this website and you can look up radio hosts, journalists, YouTube bloggers, activists who are good and credible and vetted sources of information where you can get active. I also work with Dan Johnson over at Panda Unite, he is a 19-year-old who found out about the NDAA and decided, no, I'm not doing this. And since he decided that, he has been integral in introducing anti-NDAA legislation in almost all of our states. And in some of the states, he's been successful in having it passed. So, listen to the Region 10 Report. Go to OccupyCorporatism.com. Guerrilla Media will be launched very shortly. I'm hoping to get it up this week with Vinnie Eastwood. And
by the way.
What?
I said I like Vinnie, by the way.
Oh, Vinnie is, Vinnie is like me, and I'm so glad that I got to know him personally, because he's been doing this on his own for 6 years, and then he got on American Freedom Radio, and he actually goes out and he goes to these rallies with his bullhorn, and he brings awareness in New Zealand.
Amazing. I don't do it in New Zealand though.
He's only 26.
Yeah.
Oh, he's great. And you know what he does that I love is he brings humor and a lighter side. His tagline, the lighter side of genocide, because folks, if we get bogged down by all this doom and gloom and all these sensationalist radio hosts and all these sensationalist websites, we're going to just sit with like deers in our headlights, eating our potato chips and drinking our flame retardant laced Gatorade. Okay. We need to stop. We need to actually get up and do something. And it can be peaceful.
You'll be sitting there with a jar of tangy tangerine and your little Alex Jones InfoWars decoder ring with the stress whistle.
I when I saw that Mark Dice on YouTube about tangy tangerine, and my husband and I went on PubMed, which is a website that puts together all of the scientific research on just about anything you can imagine. And we inputted every ingredient of tangy tangerine, and every single ingredient is radioactive. Barium, cesium, mercury, lead, fluoride. Some of the ingredients.
But on the on the good side, to just to look at things on the bright side, you can get iodine from them too,
Oh my God.
or you can get the potassium from them, whatever
If
it is. What
this,
is it?
yeah, the pills.
Yeah, you can get them from them too.
Yeah, if you are going to Alex Jones and buying this supplement, and in 10 or 20 years you come down with cancer, remember it was the tangy tangerine. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what it was.
amen. All right, Susan. I want to thank you. I hope you'll come on my show again.
Absolutely. Just
And
just
one of these
give me a
days,
call.
I'll like to
Yeah,
come on yours and we'll have some fun. Because I'm
absolutely.
like Vinny in that, man. I like to have fun. I enjoy. I'm one of the people that enjoys doing what I'm doing. I enjoy going to rallies and holding events. I enjoy doing my radio show. I am one of the, one of the few are the short list of hosts that goes around the country and actually meets people. And I stay at their house or they stay at my house and we just become friends and break bread with each other and exchange ideas. That's really my only goal is there's a lot of people and Poker Face and some of my other friends bring together that otherwise wouldn't get together, and so I'm pretty proud of that. But I like to have a little fun because I really enjoy myself. I enjoy doing this, and it sounds like you do too.
I do. I laugh a lot on my show, and I'm known for my giggle. Most people, when they hear my laugh, they're like, "Oh, there's Suzanne Posel," because it's so ridiculous when you dig into this. It's like a caricature. It's like a joke. You have to laugh at it.
Yeah, and to go around, holding each other in contempt, I just can't. I just
No,
can't.
there's no reason. You know what? There's going to be sensationalists. There's going to be radio hosts that just want to rally the troops and scare the hell out of people. That's okay. They can play in that sandbox. There are other people like you and I and Vinny who really want to get something done. And we have our own sandbox and we're going to play in that one.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Testify, Susan.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show today. And I want to thank you especially, Susan. I hope we do this again sometime.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Okay, you can cut here on the Skype call. It's at 1:50.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, that was great.
Yeah. Anytime you want, just message me on Skype and